All right, guys, listen up. Just because you need a vehicle with practicality and space doesn't mean you have to go and get some big, dumb, boring SUV. It doesn't even mean you have to go spend a bunch of money on a cool and supposedly fun SUV. Well, a Durango Hellcat sure would be. Well, buckets of fun. There's no reason you should have to pay $80,000 for something that is gonna inevitably handle like a wet noodle and get 8 miles a gallon, because despite popular belief, 700 horsepower doesn't have to get bad gas mileage. It's the weight and the aerodynamic size of that vehicle making it suck at being efficient, just to be able to haul around some stuff every once in a while. But what if I told you that you could get into a vehicle with SUV practicality with mid-size sedan efficiency and enough performance to still be fun and put a smile on your face every time you push the go pedal or chuck it into a corner? Would you even believe me? Well, you should, and today I'm gonna prove it, because I'm gonna let you guys take a sneak peek into my secret list of the most fun station wagons that you can buy for a pretty reasonable amount of money. But before we get into all of this kind of crazy stuff, if you're new here, subscribe and give the video a thumbs up. It helps us get in front of a bunch of other car enthusiasts just like yourself. And if you ever need anything, wheels, tires, or suspension, make sure you come see the experts over at fitmentindustries.com, where we have over 1 million different wheel and tire packages that we will mount, balance, and ship to you for free. And if you like random car facts and want to see some behind the scenes action here at Fitment Industries, go ahead and give me a follow on Instagram at seanb.fi. Let's get started. Let's start by taking a step back to the year 1994, back when Buick meant less expensive Cadillac and not more expensive Chevrolet. Anyway, Buick took their largest flagship luxury vehicle, the Roadmaster, and tossed in a modified version of the Corvette's LT1 5.7 liter engine. Now, when I say modified, I don't necessarily mean more power. I actually mean less power and better drivability. That means an iron head instead of aluminum and a less aggressive cam for more low-end power. Anyway, this was a full-ass size, 260 horsepower, 300 foot-pounds of torque, rear-wheel drive, kind of Corvette-powered Impala SS-ish station wagon. These cars are cool. This was before AMG made station wagons. There was no real wagon competition in the US, but they still did it anyway. And with its subdued styling, SUV-like handling, and quickly dated fake wood panel trim, nobody really cared. And that's why today these cars can be had in really solid condition for $5,000 to $7,000. Now, you're probably not going to win any races with these things because they're huge, but they do have a honking V8. They do fantastic burnouts, and it has a pop-up turbo seat that you won't even use, but it's pretty fun to look at and show people. They're awesome cars. I freak out every time I see one and people look at me all weird like nobody cares, but I really feel like it's because none of you know how sick these cars are. Anyway, I digress. Let's move on. Keeping in the same era, Volvo was pulling some of the same as Buick when it comes to a super sleeper station wagon. A company that was known, and realistically still is known, for making safe and boring cars, actually slid out some super performance wagons in their time. More specifically, I'm referring to the 1996 Volvo E50R Estate. The E50R Estate looked just like the regular old boring Volvo with its rather square and boxy design they were known for, but under the hood was a turbocharged 2.3 liter inline 5-cylinder engine that produced 240 horsepower. That was built to last pretty much forever. That's V8 numbers at the time, but in a smaller package and a more aggressive power curve. And all it took was a less restrictive exhaust and a little bit more boost to make 300 wheel horsepower. 300 in 1996. Hell, even today, 300 wheel horsepower is good enough to run a mid-13 quarter mile and will pretty much hold its own against most cars on the street today. The engine wasn't the only change for the R trim either. These things had stiffer suspension, larger sway bars, and Alcantara interior pieces. The Volvo wagons were the epitome of hauling stuff and people all over the country. And with an engine that makes barely less power than a newer than it Audi S4 with a bigger engine and twin turbos, it's hard for me to comprehend that these weren't more desirable than they were. Alas, these never really took off outside of your Volvo enthusiast community, which is extremely unfortunate because on paper, these things check most of the enthusiast boxes, and they really deserve more recognition for being that nearly perfectly well-rounded vehicle between handling, power, utility, reliability, and even comfort. And in my opinion, these cars' looks are timeless in such a subtly aggressive manner. The spoiler on the hatch, the lip molded into the bumper, and oh my God, that 5-cylinder exhaust sound. I think what ultimately led to this car not catching on in the United States is the fact that a manual transmission wouldn't be an option in North America. And although manual swaps are pretty straightforward and common in the Volvo community, the car kind of missed its entire mark and probably won't ever receive the love that it deserves on a large scale, which is why these cars are still really, really cheap. Again, you're probably looking at $5,000 to $7,000 for a car that will literally do it all and last forever. The Volvo 850R is one of the greatest wagons of all time. Now, if you thought Volvo was done making cool station wagons that nobody knows about, you're still wrong. Just a couple years ago, Volvo actually dropped their brand new V90 wagon in T8 trim. It's certainly not as racy as the letter R, but what T8 does mean is that this luxury station wagon has a supercharged and a turbocharged 2-liter engine producing 315 horsepower with a big old boost from an 86 horsepower electric motor for a combined output of 401 horsepower and 472 foot-pounds of torque, allowing this 4,600 pound lard to get to 60 in under 5 seconds. Not bad for a 2-liter from Volvo. All this tech will cost you a little bit though. These cars are still selling in the high 30s and getting into the low 40s. But there's no way we could get away from the 90s cool wagons without making a stop at the BMW M5 Touring of the E34 generation. Now, the US never officially actually got any of these cars, but of the 891 hand-built M5 Tourings produced in the world, it's noted that about 30 or so did make it to the US and have become federally legalized. And they even made some of these California legal. Anyway, these cars are so friggin' cool just in regular M5 sedan trim, but in wagon form, these things took on a whole new evolution. The E34 M5 utilized a 3.8-liter inline-six, which was quite large for 6 cylinders of any kind at this time, and it produced over 330 horsepower, naturally aspirated in 1992. At that time, that's more horsepower than the LT1 powered Corvette at the time, with less cylinders and a lot less displacement and still naturally aspirated, which just absolutely blows my mind. These cars are seriously awesome, but they are quite expensive at the tune of around $60,000. But it had to be brought up because I know at least I lost my mind when I learned about these cars, and I felt like you deserve to know. Anyway, moving on to something a little more obtainable. Coming around in 2005 for the 2006 model year, Dodge's new lineup of modern performance cars had just dropped onto the scene with an all-new 6.1-liter SRT8 engine, pumping out 425 horsepower, and they pretty much dropped that boy in everything. You're talking Challenger SRT, Charger SRT, the Grand Cherokee SRT, and even the Chrysler 300 SRT. And then they decided to give Dodge's newest station wagon, the Magnum, the SRT treatment. The SRT Magnum is quite literally a 300 SRT station wagon. Even just scanning the roofline and the quarter panels and fenders and even the B and C pillars, the DNA of the 300 is all there, with an added luggage space. Now, I'll be the first one to admit the overall quality of these cars inside and out has dated the car very quickly, but there's just something about a muscle car station wagon with the big red Brembos that gets me all excited, especially considering you can pick one of these up for $10,000 to $15,000 for a really, really nice one. That's a lot of performance for the money, and it's something you don't see a whole lot. Now, if you've ever seen any of my other videos where I talk about performance bargains, you'll know that I talk about the W211 chassis Mercedes-Benz E55 AMG quite a lot. Not just because I take my own advice and I bought one, but because it's genuinely one of the best performance bargains of the modern era. And if you want to see it in action, go check out my Instagram. Anyways, in 2005 and 2006, Mercedes-Benz imported just 193 of its AMG trimmed E-Class wagons to the United States. That means 469 horsepower and 515 pound-feet of torque, 8-piston Brembo brakes, heated, vented, and massaging seats in a low 12-second station wagon? What? That is absolutely bonkers. When these cars came out, it was the world's quickest accelerating and fastest station wagon until they beat themselves with the later E63 AMG wagon. Now, since these cars are legitimately quite rare, they do demand premium money. I've seen some that needed a lot of sorting dip down into the $16,000, $17,000, $18,000 range, but most of them with medium to higher miles are still selling in the mid to low 20s, and is for sure one of my attainable dream cars that I would like to have someday. And it is one of the only cars in this price range to legitimately compete with way more expensive cars in itself, at least in a straight line. Getting into more modern territory, another AMG makes the list. In 2012, the E-Class AMG wagon went from a 6.2-liter naturally aspirated V8 and opted for a smaller 5.5-liter V8, but with a pair of turbos strapped onto it, good for 550 horsepower and almost 600 foot-pounds of torque. And the cool thing about these is that they're 9 years old. Too old to kind of be bought by the wealthy, yet still too expensive to end up in the hands of a bunch of use and get trashed and neglected. These cars are really quite reliable, easy to tune and modify, and although $40,000 for one of these cars is a lot of money, it's certainly an obtainable car that, with a quick flash of the ECU, will have you murdering Hellcats while hauling 4 adults with all of their luggage in the back, all while keeping it classy and not garnering any attention from law enforcement while you mob down Highway 41 like it's the frickin' Autobahn. And last but certainly not least, the 2021 Audi RS6 is an absolute game-changing monster of a wagon. Now, I've always been a huge fan of the Audi A6 based all-road, and the RS6 takes it to a whole new level. This station wagon is just 9 digits shy of 600 horsepower and 600 foot-pounds of torque, and gets squeezed through one of the best all-wheel drive systems of all time, Audi's Quattro system. And that power comes from a 4-liter twin-turbo V8, which is a variant of the same engine used in the Lamborghini Urus, the RSQ8, Porsche Panamera, Bentley Continental, the S8, and so on. Meaning that A, this platform is pretty damn well developed and proven to be reliable, as well as making most parts pretty well mass produced and, for lack of a better term, more affordable. These cars are expensive, but they are absolute rocket ships with a station wagon body. And it is currently probably the best station wagon to exist ever. But that about wraps it up for some of my favorite station wagons of all time, most of which being pretty affordable if you're not scared to be seen in a station wagon, and all of which look pretty sinister, lowered on some aftermarket wheels, tires, and suspension from fitmentindustries.com. I'm Sean, and if you guys want to see more videos just like this one, make sure to slap that thumbs up and leave your ideas down in the comments. I try to read every single one. Don't forget to subscribe and click that bell so you don't miss any of the crazy builds coming your way. Peace.